nutshell, when we talk about when someone buys a house, so the yields are generally, when someone buys a house, the yields are generally less. Like the bigger the property, the lower is the yield. It becomes a difficult scenario to sustain that property for a longer period. Just for people to get into multiple properties, because we are investors here, we need serviceability as well as borrowing capacity and the capital growth into that property. When we compare both the things together, we are talking about capital growth plus. So if the same property can give you dual income or the multiple incomes, then your portfolio becomes better because your cash flow becomes better and your ability to hold that property for a longer time and buy another property becomes better. In terms of the introduction, so Vinay is from Melbourne. He represents APM. He has built a few rooming houses for himself, and we have got him on board because he's so much passionate about rooming houses, and he's a practical guy, and it will be very good to hear from him about rooming houses since he has already built 3. He's into the process of that, and by looking at his passion, we thought it would be a very good idea to have a hands-on experience for everyone to talk to Vinay on that side. We have Ash with us, who is from U Homes. He's the builder for U Homes. Our relationship is almost 10 years old. In terms of professional relationship, we are working for 5 years, starting again from small house and land packages, and then we are innovating products to get a better service and better options to the customers. As you are all aware, so none of this is a financial advice, and whatsoever we are talking today, because every individual has different circumstances. So for any sort of investment, you need to go and talk to your financial company. So what is the demand for a single person household? So the concept of rooming house has come from a requirement of a single person requirement as compared to the whole family requirement. So on that aspect, I would give it to Vinay to talk about it.
Thank you, Vivek. Good morning, everyone. Before I get started on the concept and things that we have for you on rooming house and multiple properties, just want to share quickly. I'm today supported by my team, Vivek, Ash, who is spearheading the business for U Homes, and I'm also supported by my team member, Pinal, who is in the room and is our landscape architect, plus also part of our sales team. As a housekeeping, please, next about 40 minutes gonna be a really immersive session for all of you. I'll make it quite interactive. So as a housekeeping, kindly please, if you could put your mobile phones on silent mode, I appreciate that. Before we get into what a rooming house is, first I want to talk about why we should be talking about rooming houses before we jump into the solution. So let's look at the demand. So this is a summary slide. Basically, I talk through some data points in the next few slides, but what it really talks about, there is an established fact that today the people looking for a suitable accommodation, when I say suitable, a lone person looking for an accommodation suitable for living for a single person or couples has exponentially grown, and that fact is established by some data points. I'll show you that. The building approvals have significantly gone low in Victoria. None of us are new to the market. You all know there have been some fundamental, things that have been happening in the industry. Interest rates have gone up. Builders have had quite a few problems. People are restricting to, so there are quite a few things which have added to this point. Vacancy rates have significantly gone low. There is a bit of a data point. So the vacancy rates have gone substantially low. This is a data point from January. It was trailing in January at about 1%, which is historically a very low vacancy rate. All of us know vacancy rate is all about how many people are looking for property and how many are available. So that ratio basically has gone low. Obviously, we all know interest rates have increased. So this is some slide. We'll move up to the next one. Single room demand. This is again a data point, a chart which talks about all of us. If you could please have a. So I would like you to have your attention on this graph basically. So if you look at the quadrant where one person, single person looking for a suitable accommodation, it is about 25% of overall people looking for accommodation. And if we look at the supply side of things, it is quite low here. So that's the key factor I want to highlight. And plus there are quite a few other statistics, Australian Bureau of Statistics, this is on their website, quite interesting stats. I'll relate more to it in more forthcoming slides. I personally have been doing, when I started my journey, when I thought about investing as an investor, where should I go and why should I go? I started looking at some data points across some of the councils in Melbourne and in Victoria as a whole. And what I found, there is a constant push by state government for councils to look at their demand of people living, the kind of demographics that will be occupying homes, calling places homes in the suburb. And they spent councils have spent a lot of money in understanding what will be the trend for next 10 years. And interestingly, what they have found, this is called housing diversity strategy. And this was a narrative given by government, state government to all the councils. Give us your housing diversity strategy, how you will diversify your housing stock, what will you allow from your planning perspective, what will you discourage as a development. So what came out of that was the need of single or two resident households. In 2016 it was 25,000 and about 6,000 were the supply. In 2026, which is just maybe 3 years down the line from here, the demand will be people looking for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom will be about 40 grand, and the supply will be this minuscule high addition, which is about 10 grand, and 54,000 will be needed in 2041, and about 50,000 will be available, right? So this is a data from source is Hume Housing Diversity Strategy. This is a council where I used to live starting 5 years ago, and I started researching on what my council is doing. And this is a pictorial form of this data. If we plot this graph, so supply is almost at same level, although it is increasing, but demand accordingly is very exponentially increasing. So the gap is gonna be higher and higher going forward for 1 or 2 bedroom properties, basically. Again, that got my interest in knowing what other councils are doing, and I did similar research, what they are doing, spoke to their town planners, looked at their data on their website and some other sources, and what I found similar trends in other councils. I have heaps and heaps of data to support, but in the best interest of time, we have just put three councils data point for 3 councils. This is another Wyndham City Council Affordable Housing Strategy 2022 to 25, and again similar trends have been found that people looking for, this data is not very clear, but if we read this, less than 1% of Wyndham's housing stock has 1 bedroom, and less than 7% of dwellings have got 2 bedrooms. That's what they found. And this graph not very legible from the screen, but what it is telling, the demand is going to go higher and higher. 2021, 2026 and 2041, the demand is going to rise, right? Same I did for another council. Same we did for another council. What it says, 9 out of 10 homes in KZ have 3 or more bedrooms. Only 1% of KZ house has 1 bedroom. So the fact I'm trying to say is, it is now established fact there is a huge demand for single bedroom accommodation accommodations which are not available. They are available in their own shape or format, someone renting out a room on sharing basis or whatever. But when I talk about suitable, purpose-built, well suited for a lone person, there's a huge gap. So, question I get a lot asked, what sort of, by the way, I have properties in, based on this data I acted, and I have property, my own rooming house in Wyndham and in some other suburbs as well. So, and I can see what I did was quite right, was in alignment with the data that I saw. Now, what sort of renters we attract? Usually, when someone looks at this, they say, "Oh, I know this is a student accommodation." But the fact of the matter is, it is not a student accommodation. Student is just one part of the demographics that we attract. But our interest is mainly in working professionals, some other renters class, basically, which means students are one part. The people who would likely be renting out these rooming houses, I talk about what they are, but they will be the target or potential renters for these properties. Students, people with one single or couple, older persons, first home buyers. We see these a lot, people who have been trying to get their foot in the door and finding a bit challenging in the market, so they find places like these which are suitable, purpose-built, for them to stay in the interim and then move on with the journey of buying first home. Single parent not so much, because obviously these properties are, I wouldn't say there are not people or parents living into these properties, but I have seen very low trend where a family or a parent is living in these properties. Divorces and separated people, empty nesters, and I want to draw your attention to this last, new migrants as well. We all know migration story now, in the past and going forward. There are some stats out in the public. The migration is going to happen in a big way. And personally, from my experience, I see a lot of these demographics, looking for these properties because new in the country, new to the environment, they want to get something which is suitable for them at a reasonable price, and also where they don't have to get married to the property for 1 year or longer term. So that's where I see a lot of these sort of migrants, occupying these properties. So from here onwards, I'm conscious of the time. I want to make session more interactive, but I'll hand over to my colleague Vivek, who will talk about dual income homes. Then I'll come back again to talk about rooming houses.
Hi. So in terms of the dual income, as we have discussed earlier, it's a very basic product as an advancement to a normal housing rent package to get a little bit of higher yield in that size. So in the Melbourne, we have, unlike Sydney, like there's a granny flat option, we have created an option in Melbourne which we, in a dual occupancy. Basically, it's a 4-bedroom plus media house in that sense, and we are making extra en suite. So rather than making 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, double garage standard house, we are making three bathrooms. So 2 of them are en suites, and a portion of the house can be rented separately. The beauty in this, as compared to other dual income houses, is the cost increase is very low. So the idea is we are not charging $150,000 for a granny flat kind of stuff. We are only charging you a little bit extra in terms of the cost of en suite kind of stuff. So we are anywhere between $50,000 to $30,000 depending on the inclusions and all that. So it becomes, if you're paying only $15,000 to $30,000 extra and you're getting a rent on that, it is significantly high, because the incomes, smaller the dwelling, higher is the rent. It makes a lot of sense on that side. Again, on the concept side, as we say, that they are in the same house, we are keeping 2 tenants. We are talking about a cash flow in terms of the understanding how a dual income can be better as compared to a normal house. So in a normal housing rent package, the idea is, because of the negative gearing, or the income is less. So in a house, typically it's 2 to 2.5% of yield. In this market, since there is a shortage, we can go up to 3%. But still, with the interest rate going high, around 5.5 to 6%, we are looking at a negative cash flow of $300 up to $300, $350 per week. It also depends on the size of the house, how big is the house, how big is the land. So you can get that. In terms of a dual income home, because you are getting a second income, your cash flow is almost cash flow neutral, little bit cash flow positive. So it's a low price, low risk product which is getting almost neutral, a little bit of cash flow positive. Yeah.
So when you said that dual income, so how the billing will be separated for that property?
Yeah, we can talk about it once we just because I'm to finish the presentation, but I'm more than happy to.
Yeah.
There are, in terms of all questions or anything, I'll be more than happy to take. But when we go into the bidding part and lot of small things, we have a stall, you come, we sit down.
Yeah.
What is a rooming house? So I'll give it to the rooming house expert now.
Thank you, Vivek. Alright, from here onwards, our journey for next 20 minutes will be less about my presentations, more about interactions, and I will encourage more and more interactions. One of the things with less than 30 seconds, I want to tell you why we brought in dual income slide here was that rooming house is definitely the way to go, and I'll tell you why. But sometimes there are situations where we are constrained by the financial position of our potential investors. That's where we advocate for something which is not a traditional home, still not a rooming house because of the finances involved, but still something in between so that we could take you out from that grip of negative gearing. That's why. So more contextual information on our stall, and I'm very happy to address all your questions about how we manage the billing and stuff. All right, back to rooming house. One of the things could you just go back to me, please? All right, from this picture, can someone guess what is a traditional home? What is a rooming house? What is a dual income? Which one is a dual income home out of this? Or are they all traditional homes? Or is anything that is looking more of a rooming house? Any guesses? Sorry, no. Yeah. Okay. Is this looking like a rooming house or a dual income or a traditional home or none of them or none of them? Okay. Okay. And is this a traditional home? Is this a traditional home or is it a rooming home? All look same, right? Exactly. So that's the point I want to make. So we so just to tell you the fact, one is a traditional home, one is a rooming house in this, and one is a dual income home. And we pride ourselves as builders to come with the innovation that whatever we build, they don't stand out. Because traditionally, rooming house has been carrying a stigma or a taboo about, oh, you know what, they look like a hostel, they look like a hotel, they look like an old commission house, they look like this, they look like that. I wouldn't be building down the lane here on there because they look like this. So we pride ourselves in making ultra modern, high specs, custom built rooming houses. They gel so well with the neighborhood characteristics that if you stand outside a home and if I don't tell you what it is, you will never get to know. And that's what is required, from the aesthetics point of view. And I think we have done really well. Rooming house, basically what is a rooming house? The rooming house by definition, Consumer Affair Victoria defines, a rooming house is a property where more than 3 people can stay on separate leases. And a typical lease spans across 3 months to 12 months. Now, people ask like, I have a 5-bedroom home, what is that stops me to put 5 people in there? Yes, they can. But by law, if there are more than unrelated 3 people living under one roof, the house has to be a rooming house basically, and that's where the legal requirements from the legislation point of view kick in. You can't have more than 3 people in a house if it is not a rooming house. People think it is I keep getting asked like, I have a passion for Airbnb. Do you think if I build a rooming house, can I run it as an Airbnb? People coming in for 1 week, 1 night? No, that's not what it is. The lease has to be minimum 3 months. very familiar with the typical arrangement where there is a one landlord, one rental manager, and tenant paying typical 400 to 500 per week. Now, rooming house is different in a way that we have a one landlord, we have an experienced rental manager. Now, when I say experienced rental manager, I'm not talking about Ray Whites of the world or Barry Clarks of the world. I'm talking about specialized people who have the knowledge and the license to run these properties. And typically, if we are talking about 5-bedroom rooming house, so the arrangement is like this: a property manager managing 5 different leases. Now let me tell you, all of these are separate leases, all governed by well-defined framework of the law, how these leases should be managed and all of that. We are talking about roughly 10 to 12% of returns gross to generate a super cash flow. That is for a 9-bedroom. For a 5-bedroom, there is bit of less. This is the return in terms of percentage, but money end of the day for a 5-bedroom is different than a 9-bedroom. We'll talk about all of that, but that's the conceptual difference between a traditional home and a rooming house. Sorry, if you go back. I also want to draw your attention that people normally say, what is so special about rooming house? Why they cost us more to build and whatever else. I want to draw your attention that there are quite a few things. By definition of a rooming house, they are residential properties from the council legislation perspective or state legislation provision perspective. Normal home is considered 1A in the NCC National Construction Code. Rooming houses are classified as 1B. The moment we talk about 1B, we need to comply to fire and safety standards. We need to comply to disability access requirements. We need to comply to a lot of other things. That's why these are typical characteristics of a rooming house. I also want to call out that in a rooming house, we can't charge utilities separately. So we build that up into our rental, income or rent that we ask to the renter. So that's how it works typically. I'm sure by now a lot of you may have some questions, and I'll pick all those up in a while. I want to spend more time on that, but I'll very quickly finish my spiel on rooming house basically. So this is a typical design of a 5-bedroom rooming house. This is just a concept. There is a lot more detail that we need to look into, but conceptually every room, there's a 2-car park, there's a bedroom with an robe, built-in robes, and an ensuite, another bedroom with robe and ensuite, and so on and so forth, 5. And there's a kitchen, there is a living room, and 2-car park, just like a normal house. Rooming house future resale value, I'll pick it up in question and answer. So this is a typical cash flow statement that we have put together. I'm sure people will have a lot more questions, but I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot. I want to draw your attention here. If we are building a rooming house, so for the sake of putting this concept in front of you in a simpler way, we have put together, say, if you were buying a normal home at a price of say 900,000, and if you were buying a rooming house, say for example at 900,000, what is the end result for both of these properties? I can go in a lot more detail, but I want to draw your attention quickly that if it was a normal home, traditional built-up home already, you are almost 300 to 350 minus from your pocket week on week. And if you are a rooming house, you own a property which is a rooming house, you are netting at about $300 to $4 per week net in your pocket. So essentially, what I'm trying to say, so if we are talking about, if I was on one hand holding a property of a traditional home, I was paying 350 minus from my pocket, and if I'm putting a rooming house in perspective, I'm net about 700 plus because I don't need to pay minus a component and I'm getting another positive component. So effectively, you are 700 plus if you look at it, right? Quite an important slide, and this will trigger a lot of questions, I'm sure. But I want to just high rental yield. We already spoke about 10 to 12% yields based on where we are building, what we are building. Huge demand. Personally, from my own perspective, the properties that I have been operating, the last one which I completed was 5 bedroom in one of the suburbs of Melbourne, and it was a 5 bedroom. We put it on the market for a certain amount, about $230 a week, and within 2 weeks, I got 17 applicants. We only needed 5 of them, and we picked up 5, whoever I wanted, not as in I wanted, as in whoever I thought were the right renter demographics for my property, and then 13 went on to my waiting list. So that's the kind of demand we see. Most of the time, that's what it happens. And the rent I put out on the market for 230. All the 5 rooms were at $300. That was the demand. People wanted to rent it out for more, and they knew they're gonna miss on it because it was highly specs, purpose built, very comfy, arrangement, and they saw the value, and that's how I ended up. I ended up having $300 per week for each property, each room actually. And the length of the lease, I had one at 6 months lease. All other 4 were at 12 months. People knew that if I end up having a shorter lease, they might not have a chance to come back. So that's tax benefits. We are not tax consultants, obviously, so we wouldn't talk about nitty-gritties of tax, but usually all of us know the depreciation aspect. Like there are 2 parts: building depreciation and fitting and fixture depreciation. These properties being custom built, we usually rent out with fully furnished properties. These properties enjoy much larger portion of depreciation because of the fixtures and fitting, the bed, white goods, and every room has got some facilities, whatever else. So all that adds to your depreciation benefits. Reduced vacancy risk. The product is so beautiful that it gives you inherited safety net. Why? So if you talk about 5 bedroom, room 1, room 2, room 3, room 4, room 5. So in a typical arrangement, if a house is vacant for 6 weeks, say $500 a week, 6 weeks, 3,000 straight away gone for 6 weeks, if there is no rental in that. But for these properties, the moment you fill room 1, your risk of rental vacancy or risk due to vacant property goes 1 by 5, 2 by 5, 3 by 5, and by the time you fill your 3rd room, you're almost there. You're at a break even. Rest all the money is gonna be your money in your pocket, so you don't really have to worry about 3, right? And then once it is fully filled, then I have at least never gone back into the negative territory. Even someone is coming in vacating. Why? Because in room 1, someone vacated, 4 are running. 2nd got vacated, 3 are running. So by the time we fill 2nd, 1 is already filled. One is filled, 2nd is filled, 4th went out. So the cycle goes on and on. Careful selection of the site. Most of the times people say, this is a cash flow strategy actually, and where is the capital growth? So I want to tell that our selection criteria for the sites still remains the same. The fundamentals still remains the same. We buy sites for rooming house, obviously looking at the demographics, what we want to attract to our properties, plus where there's a land scarcity, the demand supply ratio of the land, and how many are across in that suburb. So all of that still goes into research before we buy any site. So in a sense, what I'm trying to say, there is definitely a huge element of capital growth as well in the property. Not only that, there is another reason why we see a huge capital growth by way of how these properties are financed, funded, how they are looked at. They are valued at GRV, gross rental value of the property. So I'll talk about all of that in a while, but definitely there is a huge element of capital growth in these properties. Cost comparison, these Sydney sites are not new to the apartment market, do we? No, right? So building a 1-bedroom apartment into 5, the cost of that is substantially higher than building a 5-bedroom rooming house. We all know that. And the fact of the matter is that these properties enjoy single set of council rates. There is no strata on these properties. There is no body cop, as we call it. There is no shared driveway to be looked after. There is nothing of that sort. And no approvals, as if we buy in the right area with the right technical fundamentals, we cut a lot of red tape of planning permit as well in Victoria, which means a planning permit could span anything from 8 months months to 10 months in some council and even more. But but with these properties, we could cut that planning side. Still, there is an approval required from council, but we managed to get that within 4 to 6 weeks by way of selective design. Okay. All right. Let's move on. This is our sales process. We'll talk about it in a while. Can we move on? Can we move on? Can we move on? Can we move on? All right. So I think I have. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. What I spoke to you. It's like immersing your thumb into the ocean is what I've spoken about. I'm more than happy to sit outside with you one-to-one to talk in. I mean, it's a subject we can talk about at length. Like site acquisition in itself is a subject to be spoken about. Property management, building approval, construction, rent management, whatever. So I'll just stop here because I've got only 10 minutes at hand. I want to take up your questions and queries as much as I can. I will the floor. Yeah.
The stamp duty on these room houses, is that lower than the standard house?
So the question is stamp duty lower on rooming houses? So there are two parts to it. When we build a rooming house, we select a site. On that, we build a rooming house for construction. So when we buy the site, the land stamp duty has to be paid only on the land portion. That's how it is lesser. For example, if a property was worth 900,000 and the rooming house was also worth 9,000, so the land component say $450,000. So for a rooming house, the land component will attract the stamp duty on the land component, which is much lesser than paying the stamp duty on an established home. Yes, please.
What are your management fees?
Very good question. Management fee in a typical home, standard home, the management fee is property management 7% plus another insurance, council rates. All that inclusive is 17% for a traditional home. For these properties, they are 10% higher, about 27%, 26 to 28% depending upon where we are building. And the reason for that, there is a good reason for that. These properties are managed by experienced property managers. There are open areas, common areas, no man lands where no one owns a responsibility like kitchen, hallway. So those needs to be cleaned periodically. That's why there is a cost involved in that. If you are building a good, nice owner-occupier building, have a backyard, front yard to be looked after. So all of that inclusive about 27%.
So that 27% also includes the insurance and council. We are talking about the overall costs, total expense.
Council,
There's nothing extra after that.
Yeah.
What is the management fees like? You know, it is around 7 to 8% in
It
nature.
has two options. So it has two options. A little bit of things to understand. So you can pick and choose. So I would rather if you can come to my stall, I'll explain both. Because we have specific time. That's all.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Can you answer the first question again about the difference in stamp duty and bias there?
So stamp duty.
Stamp duty you only pay on the land, so not the full bill. So land, so that way it's quite less. So if a land was at say 450-500 mark, for example, you pay stamp duty only that about 25 to 30 grand, not on the full construction. That's the legislation in
But in
the
that example, the property price was same, right? It's the same property, right?
It's like a house and land. So in house and land, it's a dual contract. You pay the stamp duty on the land. only.
I'll address that in more detail, but effectively, in a traditional home, you pay stamp duty on full price of 900,000. In a rooming house, you pay only on the land property, which is roughly about half of the stamp duty. Yes, please. Sorry, I'll pick up this one. Yes,
Are
please.
there any specific zoning requirements to build this property?
So the question is, are there any specific zoning requirements to build these properties? Yes, and that's where our expertise come in. We pick in those areas where the zoning is suitable to address to build these properties. Yes. Yes, please.
How is the finance done, residential or commercial?
How is finance done? The question is, finance is done as a commercial property as well as residential property. So there are two ways to get this financed. So the way we build depends, how it will be financed ultimately is based on how we build it. So there are both the ways. We can talk in detail how this can be financed. Yes.
I
what is the renter owner ratio, and what is the if a raw tenant brings up the power and gas bill, how can we tackle that, and what are the chances of builder going bankrupt, and can we know about the builder's margin in here?
Very good question, but no thing, one word answer for all of this. I'll take all this outside one by one to one.
Can we have this question, please?
I'll ask Paras, right? Yes, Paras.
So, what is the difference in terms of deposit side, right? Can I just get into it with 10% deposit with LMI, or do I have to have like 20-25% deposit? Because in the example I saw here, for a 900,000 house, I could see that $300,000 is the initial cost. 300 is too much for a person.
The question is how much deposit I need to build a rooming house. 30% and 20% based on how we look at this. If we are building it, getting it financed as a residential property, you need at 80% LVA, you need 20% deposit. If it is funded as commercial property, it will be a 30% deposit requirement. Yes, please.
Why it is 20%, why it is not 10%? Because you think that there is some more restrictions coming from the LMI guys or bank?
No, the lenders who fund these properties, they have their own criteria, and these are not funded as a general. The guidelines for funding these homes are different. So we can look into LMI options as well if it is funded as a residential property. That scenario can come into picture. But in the past, what we have seen, you definitely need at least 20% deposit. Yes, please.
What are the legal requirements for the capital gains that you get after selling such property?
So what are the legal implications of a capital gain implication on these properties? These properties have same capital gain implications how you have for a residential home, a normal. Once you build, you sell it, you make some capital gains, and you pay CGT. That's how it is. Yes.
How do you select renters basically?
How do we select renters? Excellent question. Excellent question. We have property managers for all our builds. That's why I say we build high specs to target certain demographics. We look for working professionals, likes of working in retail, Bunnings, good guys, hi-fi. We select the areas and likes of paramedics, doctors, nurses. That's our ideal demographic, and we have property managers who can suss through the application and see who is who and who we need to get into a property. Yes, please. More questions?
Is this just for Victoria or
The question is this only for Victoria or do we have anything else in other states? The answer is we are heavily focused in Victoria. There is a good reason for that. Right now, Victorian market is very ripe from the legislation point of view. There is minimal red tape from the approval perspective, less effort and better outcomes. Hence, we are heavily focused in Victoria. Yes, please.
The marketing cost for finding a tenant, like is it all just in the total admin fees? Like because tenants move in, move out so frequently.
The question is that's 27% management fee, property management fee. Does it include the cost of letting fee or condition report and all of that? So it goes back to a question. So what we are talking about, 27% inclusive everything. There is another model of property management where we pay for every service, like 6% from property management, advertising, another money, condition report, another money, cleaning, more money. That is also a model. We discourage that because based on my personal experiences. So short answer to your question, 27% or 26 to 28% is inclusive of every possible property management cost that you can think of.
We would love to take more questions, but unfortunately, we are short of time. So I'll just very quickly point out a couple of things and we'll say prior to this session. So in terms of the property management, as we say, we have a specialized team. We can tie up with any local agent, but we are dealing with a company, this lady called Leah Kelman. She has a very credible name. She is right now the board member for the Real Estate Institute of Victoria. She has been the president for 2 years from 2019 to 2021. She She manages 1,700 properties across 260 suburbs. This is her small part of the team. So, what in nutshell we are trying to say is, anywhere like we decide to buy or we are able to find, because one of the things which makes a rooming house very much different from a dual occupancy. Dual occupancy you can make anywhere. For a rooming house, there needs to be a set criteria from many different factors, including finding the right place so that the properties are always rented and they are always in demand. So that again, Vinay specializes. So this company we use for all the property. The other thing in terms of the dual occupancy, so dual occupancy we have been already selling in Sydney, like I'm Sydney based, this whole team is from Melbourne. So we have been selling dual occupancy from last almost 3 years now, and it has been very successful, and we decided to move into a more beneficial model. So rooming house has been introduced for that purpose. The process.
I won't talk about process because time is not allowing us that. I just want to wrap this session up with one statement that today in today's financial world where interest rates are touching 6 to 7%, these properties, give and take, roughly leave about 10 grand, 5 bedroom I'm talking about 10 to 12 grand in your pocket after all possible expenses that you could think of. There are also options, I have quite a few in my own portfolio, 9 bedders one as well, at very strategic locations. They generate about 140,000 gross income a year and netting about 45 to 50 grand net after all expenses paid. Anyone interested to know more about 5 bedroom and 9 bedroom income, those sort of things, I will be happy. I'll be sitting out to do one-to-one sessions. I have been given flats twice now to wrap the session up. So
okay, last thing. So this cost are without depreciation. I'll still quickly touch at the selling process. So if anybody is interested, so the idea is we just come and book an appointment with myself and Sydney. What we will look after that is depending on the requirement. They are not readily available. It's not like there's so much stock available for moving houses. Once we have a discussion, you have a sincere interest on that, we take a small refundable deposit and then we